English made easy. Hey guys, feeling overwhelmed by the fast pace of Wordly Wise 3000? I've been there, too. Welcome to your 40-minute slow listening sanctuary. We've tuned every sentence to the classic slow English standard, giving your brain the perfect window to process and truly master every word. I'm your 1 degree north companion. Ready? Let's begin. Book 4. Lesson 1. All right, today we are diving into an absolutely incredible story of pure genius. It all starts with this really cool idea, making leaves talk. I mean, it sounds like something straight out of a fantasy story, right? But talking leaves was actually the name the Cherokee people gave to a brand new revolutionary invention. It was a way to make paper speak, capturing their language for pretty much all time. And this is the guy who did it, Sequoia himself. Now here's the wild part. The central paradox of his entire life: he couldn't read or write a single word, not one. And yet, he was about to invent an entire written language completely from scratch. So how did this whole journey even begin? Well, it wasn't some aha moment with an apple falling on his head. No. It started with a really powerful observation and this just burning sense of purpose. See, Sequoia noticed that written communication gave the European settlers this huge advantage. I mean, think about it. Treaties, messages, history, it was all recorded on these talking leaves. He realized that without a written language of their own, the Cherokee Nation was at a serious, critical disadvantage, and he was determined to do something about it. He wanted to level the playing field. So to really understand just how deep his mission went, we need to get a handle on the concepts that were driving him. So let's look at a few key words that really unlock his story and the genius of his solution. Benefit. Sequoia's entire mission was driven by the potential benefit for his people. He just knew a written language would bring so much good. You know, that Latin root bene means good. It would allow them to preserve their history and communicate across huge distances. Dismay. This mission was fueled by a real sense of dismay. That deep, gut-wrenching worry he felt watching the Cherokee lose their lands. That feeling became the powerful motivation for his entire life's work. Master. Now to even have a chance at succeeding, Sequoia had to master the thousands of distinct sounds in his language. Just think about that. It was a monumental task that required incredible skill and years of dedication. Sufficient. This led him to a really crucial question. How many symbols would be sufficient to capture every single sound in the Cherokee language? You know, would 20 be enough? 100? Maybe 1,000? Finding that perfect number was the key to his whole system. Finally, he wanted to capture every single word his people could utter. Because before his invention, words spoken in Cherokee were just gone. They were lost as soon as they were uttered. Sequoia was absolutely determined to give those words permanence. Okay, so with all those ideas in mind, let's actually look at the incredible process of creating the language itself. And let me tell you, this was no overnight success. 12 years. Just let that sink in for a second. For over a decade, he faced tireless work, endless trial and error. He was even ridiculed by his own community. They thought he was chasing some impossible dream. But he never, ever gave up. And he wasn't entirely alone, which is a really beautiful part of this story. He worked together with his daughter. She would carefully speak each word, sounding it out, while he worked to capture those sounds on paper. It really became this true team effort. So this brings us to the core of his genius. I mean, English uses 26 letters. So how on earth could just 86 symbols be sufficient for the entire Cherokee language? What was his secret? And here it is, the answer is right there in that highlighted word, syllable. Sequoia's genius was realizing he didn't need a symbol for every single letter. Instead, he created a symbol for every core sound or syllable. This kind of writing system is called a syllabary, and it was just perfectly efficient for the Cherokee language. The syllabary was a total triumph. But its creation, that was just the beginning. Let's explore the incredible impact of Sequoia's gift and what it really tells us about his character. When you look at what he did, Sequoia was, in every sense of the word, a patriot. His entire 12-year obsession wasn't for fame or for money, it was an act of profound loyalty, something designed to strengthen and protect the future of the entire Cherokee nation. And his legacy lives on in a truly massive way. You see those giant ancient sequoia trees out in California? Some of the largest and oldest living things on planet Earth? Well, they're named in his honor. It's a pretty fitting tribute to a man whose gift was just as monumental. All right, now it's your turn to connect with this story. Here's a little challenge for you. Think of an inventor that you really admire. Try to describe their work in a short paragraph, but use at least 3 of the key words we've talked about: benefit, dismay, master, sufficient, or utter. Sequoia's story is just amazing proof that one person's vision can empower entire generations. So it kind of leaves us with this one final big question. What talking leaves, what unique and lasting gift will you create for the world? Lesson 2.
Have you ever imagined a world where the columns of temples weren't made of stone but were actually living things? A place where skyscrapers can breathe and where history is written not in ink, but in the rings of ancient wood? Well, today we're not just imagining it. We're stepping right into that world, to walk among the true giants of California. Our journey today starts with a name you might actually recognize. It's a really cool connection between human genius and the absolute wonder of nature. And it stretches back for centuries. So let's rewind a little. Our story kicks off with a man named Sequoia. He was a truly brilliant Cherokee inventor who did something that changed everything. He created a written language, a whole syllabary that gave his people the power to write down their history, their stories, and their laws for the very first time. You know, his legacy is all about creation and connection. And as a tribute to that monumental achievement, his name was given to these incredible trees, the giant sequoias. Literally some of the largest living things on our entire planet. A great man honored by a great tree. That's a pretty fitting tribute, wouldn't you say? But the story of these trees, well, it goes so much deeper than just their massive size. We're about to dig into some hardcore facts that reveal the truly incredible life story of these silent giants. Okay, let's start with just a number, 1926. What happened in this year? Well, one of these giants was given a title that would make it a national symbol for generations to come. That's right. The absolutely magnificent General Grant tree was officially named America's Christmas tree. It's a living monument that has held this special title for nearly 100 years now, connecting this ancient life form to a modern tradition. Now this brings us to something that sounds like a total contradiction. I mean, we think of fire as this destructive force, right? Something that forests have to be protected from. But for the sequoia, fire is actually the key to new life. It's incredible. Destruction literally paves the way for creation. The fire clears away all the old brush on the forest floor, and that intense heat is the trigger. The one thing that forces the sequoia cones to burst open and release their seeds onto this perfect, fresh bed of fertile ash. It's a perfect, unbelievable cycle of rebirth. And the human connection to these giants isn't just symbolic. Take the Rockefeller tree, for example. It stands as a living testament to John D. Rockefeller, Jr., whose vision and frankly generous donations helped save countless acres of these ancient forests for all of us and for generations yet to come. Okay, to really truly appreciate these incredible stories of scale and survival, we need the right words. So let's get our Explorer's Toolkit ready and equip ourselves with some powerful vocabulary to help describe this world. Mammoth. Our first word is just a perfect fit. And yep, it comes from that giant woolly mammoth that roamed the earth tens of thousands of years ago. Today, we use it to describe anything that is just astonishingly, jaw-droppingly large. For instance, you wouldn't just say the Valles Marineris Canyon system on Mars is big. No way. It's mammoth, a scar on the planet's surface that makes even our Grand Canyon look small. Gives you a sense of that awe-inspiring planetary scale. Scorch. Next up, we have scorch. This is exactly what we were talking about with a healthy forest fire. See, it doesn't have to completely destroy everything. Sometimes it just burns the surface a little, leaving a mark but also triggering that new life we saw with the sequoia cones. Think about it in terms of modern tech. A hypersonic jet screaming back into the atmosphere faces unbelievable temperatures. The whole goal is to make sure its heat shield avoids anything more than a slight scorch on the surface. So it's a word of high-stakes precision. Effect. Our next word is effect. It seems simple, but it's a really powerful concept. One thing causing a change in another. Cause and effect. Here's a powerful example. For an extreme athlete like a wingsuit flyer, a small, sudden change in the wind doesn't just nudge them a little. it can dramatically affect their entire flight path. Shows you how one little force can completely alter the outcome. Calculate. And finally, we have calculate. We use this word all the time for math for risks, but have you ever wondered where it comes from? The story is a little more down to earth than you might think. Isn't that amazing? The ancient Romans used little pebbles for counting and doing their arithmetic. The Latin word for pebble was calculus. So every single time you calculate something on your phone, you are mentally channeling an ancient practice of just lining up stones. How cool is that? Alright, now that we're all geared up with the right language, let's put it to use. It's time to explore the world of California's forest giants just a little bit deeper. Now, it's really important to know that not all of these giants are the same. On one hand, you have the redwood, the world's skyscraper, slender and impossibly tall. And then you have the sequoia, the heavyweight champion. Not quite as tall maybe, but with a truly mammoth trunk. So you've got two kinds of giants with two very different strategies for greatness. Text gives us a little clue here. Mentions that redwood is really prized for outdoor use. So think about it. What special property could this wood have that makes it so perfect for a patio table or a park bench that's going to be sitting outside? Come on, you know this. Think about what happens to most wood when you just leave it outside in the elements, in the rain for years. It starts that natural process of breaking down, of rotting. But redwood has a natural resistance to that, to decay. And that is what makes it so incredibly valuable. Wow. We've journeyed from a man's name to a tree's life. We've explored the power of fire and the importance of preservation. And we've mastered the words to describe it all. Now it's your turn to build something just as lasting. So here is your final mission. I want you to think big. If you could build one mammoth structure in your city, what would it be? A towering library? A sprawling park? How would you calculate its impact, and how would it affect the lives of the people there? Use the language we've explored today and dream up your own mammoth legacy. What will you create?
Lesson 3. Today, we're going to dig into the story of a real-life time traveler, an animal that has basically figured out how to skip winter entirely. Let's kick things off with a little thought experiment. Could you, really, could you go to sleep for 8 whole months? No food, no water, and just wake up in the spring? It sounds like something straight out of a sci-fi movie, doesn't it? Well, for one incredible animal out there, this isn't science fiction at all. It's just what they do every year to survive. Let's meet the groundhog, a true master of suspended animation. What exactly is this impossible sleep? To really get a handle on the groundhog's superpower, you have to understand that this is way more than just a long nap. The official word for it, of course, is to hibernate. It's a state where an animal's body basically shuts down almost completely. It's all about surviving those brutal winter months when there is just nothing to eat. So how on earth does an animal pull off this kind of incredible disappearing act? Let's get into the science of it, because honestly, the biology here is just mind-boggling. To really appreciate how extreme this is, you have to know that not all winter naps are the same. You know, we think of bears hibernating, but they actually go into a lighter state called torpor. They can wake up. The groundhog? Nope. It's a true hibernator. We're talking a complete biological shutdown, basically, deep suspended animation. Temperature drop, first off, and this is wild, is the drop in body temperature. A groundhog's body plunges from a cozy 37 degrees Celsius, about the same as ours, all the way down to a shocking 3 degrees Celsius. I mean, that is just a few ticks above freezing, heart rate, and get this, its heart rate practically stops. It goes from a normal 80 beats per minute down to maybe 4 or 5 beats a minute. It's literally like life has been put on pause. To pull this off, a groundhog needs a safe house, a kind of fortress of solitude that's protected from the freezing cold up on the surface. So, what does it do? It has to burrow. It digs this whole tunnel system deep, deep into the ground, way below where the frost can reach. And it's not like it's just sleeping on the cold dirt down there. Oh no, it builds a special little room, a chamber, and then it nestles into this super thick, cozy bed of grass and leaves. That's where it waits out the winter. All that prep work makes sure it stays safe even when the most severe winter storms are raging just a few feet above its head. If you could actually observe a hibernating groundhog, you would swear it was dead. Its breathing pretty much stops, its body is cold to the touch, there are almost no signs of life. It's incredible. But as you know, this amazing survival hack has a pretty big downside. After months and months of just living off its own body fat, the groundhog wakes up having lost maybe half its body weight. It comes out of that burrow absolutely famished, like, desperate for that first meal. How did this shy, reclusive, deep-sleeping animal become a celebrity? It's a pretty wild story, one that takes us from the burrow all the way to the TV broadcast. This whole story really centers on one specific, legendary groundhog. His name is Punxsutawney Phil, and he is, without a doubt, the world's most famous weather forecaster. The legend goes like this: every year on February 2nd, Phil ventures out of his burrow. He takes a look around. If the sun is out and he sees his shadow, bam! He gets spooked and runs back inside. That means 6 more weeks of winter. But if it's cloudy and he doesn't see a shadow? Well, that means spring is coming early. But where did this whole thing even come from? It's not like it just started in Pennsylvania. This tradition has super deep roots. It actually traces all the way back to an old European festival called Candlemas. Back then, they used a hedgehog. So, when German immigrants came over to Pennsylvania in the 1800s, they brought the tradition with them. The only problem? No hedgehogs around. So they improvised and picked the next best thing they could find, the groundhog. This deep connection to winter is baked right into our language. Hibernate comes straight from the Latin word hibernus, which means winter. So, to hibernate is literally to winter. Famished. Remember how the groundhog wakes up famished? That word comes from the Latin word fames, which means, you guessed it, hunger, severe. Even the word we use for the weather it's trying to escape comes from the Latin word severus, which means serious or strict. So the language itself kind of tells the story, a serious hunger caused by a strict, severe winter. For our last section, let's zoom out a bit and put the groundhog strategy into perspective. Hibernation is an incredible solution, but it's definitely not the only trick animals have up their sleeves for surviving winter. When winter rolls in, animals basically have two main choices. Hibernate, hunker down like the groundhog. Pro, you save a ton of energy and you're safe from predators. Con, you're completely helpless while you're asleep, and you wake up super weak. Migrate, just get out of there, like a lot of birds do. Pro, you avoid the cold completely and there's food where you're going. Con, the journey itself is long, exhausting, and super dangerous. It's a classic risk-reward scenario. That brings us to one last thing to think about. The groundhog's superpower is basically just hitting the fast-forward button on the season it can't deal with. So my question for you is, if you had that power, if you could just sleep through one season, which one would you pick and why? Lesson 4.
You know, some stories do more than just inspire. They completely redefine what we think is possible. Today we're going to dive into the life of Suching Chan, a truly profound story of resilience, of dignity, and the quiet strength it takes to move forward one single step at a time. So this is Suching Chan. And this quote, wow, it gets right to the very heart of her story. Her courage was all she had. It was enough. This wasn't about having every advantage in the world. Nope, it was about having the one thing that really truly mattered, courage. And as we're about to see, it was more than enough. Okay, so let's go back to the beginning. Her story starts in a village in China. As a little girl, she was active, just full of life. She loved nothing more than running around and playing with the other kids. You know, a happy, ordinary childhood. But then, just like that, everything changed. At just 4 years old, she contracted polio. Now you have to remember, before vaccines, this disease was a terrifying reality for so many kids and often led to paralysis. For Suching, it meant the muscles in her legs just wasted away, stealing her ability to run or even to walk. The outlook from the medical professionals? It was grim. The doctors were completely pessimistic. They really saw no path forward for her, giving her only a year or two to live. But, well, they seriously underestimated the person they were dealing with. So what the doctors saw as an ending, Suching saw as a beginning, the beginning of a fight. And this wasn't just going to be a physical battle, it was a battle of her will. She was really at a crossroads, facing this stark choice in her outlook. On one side, you had pessimism. That was her doctor's view, seeing only the worst possible outcome. But to survive, she had to become an optimist. Someone who, against all the evidence, expects things to go well. She had to believe the glass was half full, even when it must have seemed almost empty. So here is the incredible part: what she did next. After 3 years of being confined to her bed, she asked her mother to set up chairs in 2 parallel lines. And then she forced herself between them, using their backs for support, teaching her body how to move again day after grueling day. I mean, what an incredible act of ingenuity and just sheer determination. But you know, physical strength is only ever half the battle. The greatest tests we face often come when we are at our most vulnerable. And for Suching, that moment came on a very public stage. All right, so let's picture this. After her family moved to Malaysia, Suching just excelled in school and she even took up the piano. She was giving a recital, an event that required her to walk all the way across the stage in front of a whole audience. As she walked, her legs gave way and she fell. And from the audience she heard this voice just cutting through the silence. It was a moment of public humiliation, basically saying that her very presence, her struggle, was something that should be hidden away. And this is where her courage became legendary. Instead of retreating, her response was to get up. She struggled to her feet, made her way to that piano, and she played. And she played with such beauty and such feeling that the entire audience was moved to tears. In that one act, she answered shame with the most profound dignity. And look, this kind of resilience, it wasn't just for a single moment. It defined the entire arc of her life, which, by the way, unfolded against a backdrop of incredible historical change. I mean, her life was a journey through constant turmoil. She was born in wartime China. She lived through a political revolution that closed her school. She moved to Malaysia as a refugee, and finally she earned scholarships that brought her all the way to America. Her personal struggle was happening right in the middle of a really unstable world. So where did this incredible journey lead? Well, she became a celebrated professor and a founding figure in the field of Asian American studies. That eager young girl who fought so hard just to go to school became a titan in academia, shaping how we understand history. Her life is really a masterclass in turning adversity into achievement. So when you really look at it, the story of Suching Chan is so much more than just a biography. It's a collection of lessons about character, about perseverance, and about how we choose to respond to the world around us. Suching Chan's story really teaches us that it's our response to adversity that defines us. So it leaves us with a question for you. Who is someone you admire? Try to describe them using the vocabulary of a life that's lived with purpose, words like cherish or eager. 'Cause reflecting on the courage we see in other people, that's really the best way to honor a legacy like hers.
Thanks so much for listening. Hope you enjoyed today's show. If you did, hit that like button, subscribe, and ring the bell so you never miss an update. I'll see you in the next one.